Hi, I'm Rob Sanchez, and I'm here today with Cathy and Garrett Poshusta of Grit and Polish, and I'll bring them on in just a second. But what I wanted to say first was just I fell in love with their designs when I first saw them, when I was going through and looking for examples of entrepreneurs inside of the real estate space. And that kind of led me to ask more about what they were doing and what they were engaged in. And they have a very fascinating story. So I'm going to bring them on now. And I'd love to have you introduce yourself and talk a little bit about how you got started in real estate.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having us on, Rob. We're really glad to be here today to share a little bit about what we're doing, where we've been, and a little bit maybe about where we think we're going to be going. So I'm Garrett, and this is my wife, Cathy. We're kind of the duo behind the Grit and Polish. If you can find us on Instagram at the Grit and Polish. Cathy's kind of the face of the brand, and I'm kind of the behind the scenes guy, doing a lot of our renovations and basically following Cathy's design recommendations and inspiration. So you want to kind of tell a little bit about how we got started?
Yeah, so basically right now what we're doing is renovating old houses, and we've been doing that for 12 years now in Washington State. We got our start in Seattle quite by accident, actually. I've always loved old houses. And when we bought our first old house right in Seattle, it was in 2008, right at the beginning of the recession. And I very shortly thereafter got laid off of my job, and Garrett was in school. So we were kind of left with this big mortgage and wondering how we could just kind of keep living in this house. And
how we could make it work, what we were going to do. It was like it was one of those just kind of linchpin moments where you don't really know what to do, how you're going to do it. And
and then we decided to renovate the basement, which was completely unfinished, and turn our 2-bedroom, 1-bath house into a 4-bedroom, 2-bath house. And it had this little cottage in the backyard. So we renovated the house, and then we rented it out, and we moved into the backyard cottage that was only 400 square feet. And it was Garrett and I and our German short hair pointer, which is like the most active large dog ever. And we ended up living there for 3 years, and we really got a taste for renovating, which we liked, and for also having other people pay our mortgage, which we really, really liked, because the rent, started covering the cost of us living there too. And it was in a really fun neighborhood. So we got to start there. And then, we got employed again, started being able to save money. And then we ended up doing that again and again, where we renovated an old house, and then we'd move into it and we'd rent out the previous house. And so we did that 4 times in Seattle. And then eventually we moved back home, which is our small town of Ellensburg, Washington, right in the center of the state. And we bought a big old farmhouse out here, and we've been renovating that and doing a few projects in town. Right now we have a little cottage that was just shy of 600 square feet, but it'll be about 1,100 square feet when we're done with that. So
So our beginning really was just kind of started out of, it was one of those ones where it's a necessity. We didn't plan on becoming, real estate, entrepreneurs or investors, or really even landlords. When we started out, we bought this, cute old fixer in this nice neighborhood. And we're like, we're just gonna, fix it up and have kids, and they'll be, walking up the street to the school and the park and all that stuff. That was kind of our initial just idea about what we were going to be doing with the house. But kind of life throws you
curves. Yeah. Is that what you do?
Yeah. And so it obviously in the end, now kind of looking back, it was almost one of those things where it's in the moment you're really down and you're in that trench and you're just like, I don't see any way out of this. But obviously now looking back, it's like that was a real actually kind of blessing in disguise for us.
Yeah. What was the mindset like when you moved into the cottage? Like what was kind of going on in your heads?
I was pretty low, I will say. So I will also say that 400 square foot cottage at the time had a toilet and a sink, and it wasn't like actually set up to have us live there. And we had renovated the house. That was my first time renovating. Like I grew up with my parents doing some renovations, but that was really like, I mean, and Garrett's dad was, thankfully Garrett's dad is a commercial electrician, which if I could pick one skill to have in the family, that would be it. So, and he was laid up at the time too, because, you know, no one was building in Seattle at the time. So him and I basically like, we bought a few tools and him and I just like renovated this basement, the two of us. And it was really fun. Because Garrett was at school. I mean, he would definitely help when he wasn't at school, but he was at school during the days and then he'd come home and we just keep going and we work until, you know, so we just kind of worked our tails off and then we got our basement done. And then we went into this cottage and it was like not finished. And, you know, and I had like no prospects. I have a degree in engineering and my focus was structural engineering. And again, no one was building in Seattle. So it was like no hope of finding a job. And we're in this little cottage and I was just like, what are we going to do? But we kind of we slowly fixed up the cottage and made it kind of a cute little house. And
yeah. Meanwhile, our friends and all of our peers are like, they have their houses and they're like, oh yeah, you know, this is fine. And, you know, we're just kind of in this little, you know, seemed like a glorified dog kennel at the time because it was so small. But, you know, it obviously, you know, once we kind of got past the initial, the squeeze of just having to do that and kind of embracing it, you know, we got to the other side and, you know, a couple of few years in, we were like, this is actually really great. We can see the light at the end of the tunnel, you know, once you get a year or two under your belt like that. And, you know, it was actually kind of great too, because it's like you have to really minimize too to get in that small space and function. And so I think we've carried that forward a little bit as we've, you know, even till today, we still like that simple, you know, low amount of things. And we value that and kind of try to work and keep that front of mind as we're, you know, planning for the future too.
Yeah. And I think it also gave us a little bit of a different real estate mind shift because, you know, if we were just in that one house, we would have slowly, you know, just been spending money on the house, you know, maybe adding a second story, really just like putting a lot of money into it. But once we kind of did this renovation and moved into the cottage, instead of like wanting to just spend all of our money on our primary residence, we really liked the idea of buying another investment property, which ended up being a primary residence and then turned into an investment property. But we really liked, like, we felt like we didn't need this giant home that we had all of our money sunk into. We really liked the idea of having other, you know, providing a really lovely place for other people to live and also, you know, making money on that.
Yeah. How did you deal with, there was a family friend who, they built and then they'd move and they'd build and live there and move. And it was always like, you're waiting for the transition for the next one. What was that like? Cause that's another, it's almost like an impermanence to your existence.
Yes. You know, and I think all of our friends and family know this about us, is that we just kind of, this is just part of Garrett and I now, and part of our family culture is that we are always kind of, you know, keeping our eyes open. And we've before, so now that we're in our farmhouse, we've been here for 6 years, but before that, the longest we ever lived anywhere was actually that 400 square foot cottage. And we lived there for 3 years. And then everything after that was like a year, 18 months. And and that was really, that was just us, you know, and that became, you know, for better or worse, I definitely think there's some negative drawbacks about that, but you know, our 4-year-old, when he moved here, had already, this was his 4th house and he was 4. So that felt like a little, not great for him.
I get that. We're on house 4 with our 4-year-old as well right now. And but they were Airbnbs. And it was like over 2 years. So he doesn't understand the concept of house and mine, you know. It's like, which vacation house are we in now? It's like, no, we own this one, you know.
And our oldest became a very you know, avid collector of things. And I think that was his way of like trying to create that little bit of permanence. And so he had like his box or whatever of his stuff, and he was very into it. And our other two, now that they've been here for the last 6 years, they don't have that like he did as a kid. So it's interesting to see how that translated into some of our kids, and how they felt about kind of just having, like you say, it's like that permanence. I think it can go both ways, because it can be at once kind of grounding and solid, and you can have just that kind of underlying confidence that this place is here and this is kind of where you belong. But also, if you are moving, you get other skills that are great. If you're kind of moving around a little bit, you're not as averse to change maybe, or get some good ways to deal with that. So I think it's there's good things on both sides, but I think
and it all buffs out in therapy in the future. So
I know that's right.
Yeah,
we're gonna have some bills coming our way.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and I grew up in one house in town here and I really love the idea of a forever house. And so when we bought our first house, I really felt like, oh, this could be it. This could be where we live forever. And, we just haven't really had to abandon that concept, because, this farmhouse we live in sure could be a forever house. It is absolutely lovely and wonderful. But, just knowing us now, and after, this experience of moving so much, it's like forever might not really be a thing for us,
I think you just need to get into van life. And
that's right.
Garrett would love that.
I've been trying to push that, but it didn't. I didn't get by
stick.
it.
Yeah.
So as a business now, like that was kind of the personal side. What's happening on the business side as you're thinking about this? So one of the things I want to say is that the level of finish you're putting into the houses you're building is not what you typically see.
Yeah.
The level of thought, the level of care, and like the design side. So I'd like to have you touch a little bit on the philosophy there, and then we're going to talk about the business side too.
Yeah, I think, it all stems from this concept that Garrett and I came up with pretty early, is that like real estate for us is a long-term thing. And I really believe in the value of a house. And I do not believe in just going in and kind of, putting in whatever is cheapest, or, I think you got to kind of respect the house. And also, if you want to keep something long-term, you really, need to do it right. And so every time we've done these houses, we go in and we do all new electrical, thank goodness Garrett's dad is an electrician there. But we do the plumbing, we really try to do everything right. And we keep a mindset of like long-term. And so we really try to buy real materials. We don't put in a lot of like MDF or particle boards or, anything like that in the house. And then, with the design, it's really fun. So I love doing that. And making sure I try to keep the design looking pretty coherent with the exterior of the house and the era of the house. So that I think that really gives it longevity, because also, even if you put in expensive finishes, if they look dated in 10 years, it's like, you got to tear them out. Well, you don't necessarily have to, but you might want to tear them out and redo it. So I think that's kind of part of the longevity too, is like making sure the design feels timeless and appropriate to the house, and it's fun. Yeah.
And that's definitely been an evolution over the, obviously you do something, you kind of learn, you get a little bit better. And, early on we were, pretty green in our renovating skills. And so we go back to our first house that we did, and we're just like, okay, the whole thing needs to be done. But, we did try to make the renovations in a fashion that we would like to live in. Yeah. So we would select finishes and materials that at the time we were like, this is cool. Like we would actually like to be here in this house. And
and we did live in them too.
And we did.
We lived in
we
every
were living
single
in
one
them.
of our rentals.
And so we would always kind of keep that at the back of our mind. Is this something that we would like, a home that would be inspiring and cool for us to live in? And then, so we would, and so we would kind of put that together in the house, and, it translating that into like an actual return versus cost, isn't going to pencil, per se, because certainly if we would have just gone to a big box store and gotten, everything that we can to kind of minimize costs and put those in. The immediate return might have been a little bit better, but there are a lot of intangible things that come along with doing a little bit higher end and more, putting a little bit more money into the finishes and the renovations from a rental perspective. And I don't think those things are always captured in like real estate investing type materials. And for example, a couple of those are that your rental shows really well.
Yeah.
You have an excited and like larger pool of rental applicants. And so you can minimize, vacancy rates. You can get like kind of top tier tenants, like as far as quality and income levels and things like that. And so all of those little intangible things that you may not consider right up front, like pay back over time in like a little bit easier management, ongoing maintenance costs and things like that, because the house is all done and you have quality
less
stuff
midnight
in
calls
there.
and less,
Right. So those are all things that we've really come to appreciate and value, even if we weren't aware of what those were going to be like right off.
I mean, but they did actually like the return on investment was still good. It wasn't like so much money that we weren't making. Always looked at rentals as going to keep a rental. It actually had to bring us cash. Like we're not just going to hold a rental that's not actually, making money. Yeah. That's been our philosophy. Yeah. That's a lot harder right now probably to do than it was 10 years ago. We, when we were buying houses in Seattle, like they were quite a bit less expensive. Yeah. But also doing it yourself has really been, I think it's both how Garrett and I were raised. There's just like both of our parents are very DIYers. Mm-hmm. You just don't hire something unless you absolutely have to. And so, that saves so much money. And it definitely, there's a learning curve, a very, a big learning curve, but that has really helped.
Curve right now. Yeah.
Yeah.
but it's great. Last night it's like, I was told to grind off nail heads before ripping the planking. Right. Yeah. And so I got up there with my grinder and I'm going at them. And I'm like, I'm going to light this house on fire. I'm stopping.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to use a crowbar because I'm watching stuff skitter down. It's balloon framing and I'm seeing sparks go down the balloon. And I'm like, nope, we're done. So, but hey, that worked for somebody. It's just not working for me. Yeah. Do you find that the retention is different from other investors in the area? Do you keep people in your properties longer?
I would say our turn is actually rather frequent. We're like I would say year to 2 years, is pretty typical for us for our renters. And so I don't think that the tenancy per se is actually longer. And, I actually don't mind that to a certain extent, because it gives me an opportunity to get over there, get in, do touch up, kind of take care of the place. And also I'm not completely averse to raising rents on existing tenants, but I don't like doing that. And so I actually, if somebody's going to move out, you just reset it and, kind of you're able to bump it up without, having to have that conversation or have those feelings about like, landlords jacking the rates again. So, so I think for us, it's that kind of the pace is pretty good as far as tenant turn.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you think
like the landscaping?
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say with the landscaping, since these are houses too, if you don't get over, if you can't get over there, stuff just gets overgrown. And so, that's kind of an important part of keeping these properties.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
What was I going to ask? Oh, are your tenants buying after?
A lot of them
track
do.
That? Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm wondering if you're catching like somebody at a later cycle stage.
Very common.
Yeah, for sure. And so we've had, at least a couple of our tenants have landed in the neighborhood kind of to check it out or whatever, and then been house searching and done that. So.
Okay. I wonder if there's a way to tie that into what you do as well. That might be interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a amazing real estate agent we used to live in Forest Hills, Queens. And there's like this agent who everyone in the neighborhood knows. And she's like, Gigi is her name. And she sells 90% of the houses in the neighborhood, but she also does all the interior design. And she buys anything that's below market rate. She'll take it and completely gut it and renovate it. And it's amazing. And it's like, but she's probably raking in like $6 million a year.
Oh my gosh.
It's insane. Like when you stop and calculate how much she's making as both the buyer and the seller agent on it's like, wow, that's a good business model.
Yeah. Well, that's a great kind of just that idea of synergy between what you're doing for, whatever kind of your career is, your business is, whether, it could be real estate, it could be anything. But one thing that's a real theme that we've kind of been talking about lately is this synergy between renovating, essentially blogging and content creation through Instagram and kind of really great overlap. And so we're able to, create this synergy that basically doing either of those things independently would be fine, but together it really makes a lot of sense and really kind of translates into even more success. So
and basically what we do, for those that don't know, is that we have a blog and Instagram, and we create content around these old house renovations. So we make money there. We often get to work with partners. So like for this little rental in town, we have a great partner with JELDWIN. So, we got some really awesome wood windows to put in there. And then, we blog about it. And then long term, this is also going to be a rental for us to make money to continue earning money on the property that way. So that's been a really great pairing.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Is that part of the shift in mindset that you're going through now? Because I know we were talking about after 12 years, is like, what's next? What's coming?
Yeah. Well, I think especially with, everything's kind of a phase in life. And when we were doing the properties in Seattle, we had no kids, and then we had a baby, and now we have 3 young children that have soccer schedules and dance class, and and we really want to be around for that. And that's one real big value for us not having 9-to-5 jobs, is getting to do that. So we've shifted away from the let's renovate a house every year or year and a half, and to really getting to like take our time with them and spend that more time with our kids, more time, whatever else we like to do in life, and we do spend a lot more time, I will say, on the content creation and blog side than we used to. Like it's a part-time, full-time job on its own, but
what's it like managing kids at the same time that you're managing a renovation? Because I have not figured it out yet.
I don't know that there's a way to figure that out.
Yeah, it's definitely tricky. Our oldest was the one that was the most kind of in the mix, and he had Carhartt overalls that were like for 18.
Well, and they were like 20. All painted. We actually gave them as hand-me-downs, and someone's like, "Wow, I've never seen kid clothes with like paint all over them before." And I'm like, "Oh yeah."
Yeah,
that's the designer line that's coming out.
Yeah, work boots, and so we tried to just kind of be able to work within whatever kind of stage they were at, to try to include them a little bit too, and in kind of guys want to come and help us pick a paint color, let's put some of these paints on the wall, or let's pull some of these nails with a hammer, and just try to involve them a little bit here and there. And
I think flexibility is key too, like knowing where they're at. Like when our oldest now was a baby, we were renovating the house, and he was a really difficult baby, very colicky and stuff, and so I would actually just put him in a carrier, and his naps were basically a walk. I would take him on an hour walk so Garrett could like pound on the house, for that time.
Yeah. And that's the time we're going to get some noisy stuff.
Yeah. So, I think you really, probably like all things in life, being flexible and trying to, see where you're at and meeting everyone, with where they are at too is important. And, you know, as they've gotten to be good helpers. Like our oldest actually knows, like he can actually, like if you're up on a ladder and you're like, hey, I need that drill, you know, he's actually able to be a net positive almost, you know, we're getting to that stage. Yeah.
Soon. Yeah. That's good. Yeah. The issue I'm having is that my oldest is convinced that he's a superhero named Designer.
Oh,
and
awesome.
Designer is like great at everything related to building homes and like literally everything. So I'll turn around and he'll have a tool and it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
He's got the power.
And you know, we got our kids, they each got their own toolbox when they're little. And so we give them each their own toolbox, and I would buy tools that were safe, like a pencil, tape measures, like wrenches, things that, you know, they really couldn't do too much damage with. And so they each had their own toolbox, and they would love to bring those out. And you know, I think with kids especially, it's like if you kind of get them involved right at the beginning, then they'll kind of go off and do their own thing. And so they would have these toolboxes, and then they kind of take them off and play. And
I got him a real mower. The old school ones, and that's like his job is to mow the lawn, and I'm trying to push him in. You know, I may have him scrape paint. There's at least some areas that are not lead, so
But
it's good. My concern is that he's going to run up into the attic and go through the roof because it's all open right now. But it'll be fine. Well, that's good. So from the content perspective, you're getting revenue from partnerships. What else are you thinking about doing on that side? Are you thinking about like courses and stuff in that nature? I mean, honestly, I think a ton of people doing that.
Yeah. You know, we get requests for help with interior design a lot too. There's a lot of paths you can take once you in this kind of creator, you know, whatever path. And I think where we're at is that we like what we're doing right now, and we don't really have the bandwidth for anything else at the moment. And so I feel really great about just kind of keep working on these houses. It's really fun to create content. Like I enjoy the heck out of it. It's a lot of photography, a lot of now it's a lot of video. It's you know, it can be kind of exhausting with the, you know, changes to Instagram constantly and trying to keep up with that. But it's really fun, and I like it. Are you feeling pretty good with where we're at?
Yeah, and I think for us, it's just kind of focusing on our getting our kind of renovation projects, keep those going, and then also lean to the content creation and the blog a bit to make sure that we're able to capture, just kind of like work smarter, not harder. So we're trying to have that mindset where
well, it's so easy just to like barge ahead. You know, we're like, we want to finish this, so we just try to like barge ahead, and that's how we've always worked, is like, you know, kind of in these where we're working really intensively for long hours and just trying to bang this stuff out. But when you're trying to capture the content, you have to really step back and say, okay, this is going to take us 5 times as long, but you know, we have to we want to share this, and we have to, and so we have to really think through, like, you know, how are we going to present this content? How do you put it together? And that has been, I think, just this crazy learning curve. It's really a new, I think in the last 5-10 years, you know, it's a really new industry. And I feel like everyone's kind of learning it for themselves. There started to be some more courses and people stepping up and kind of helping people learn how to do this. But for the most part, there's a big group of us people that have been doing this old house renovations and Instagram and blogging for, 10 years or whatever. And we've all kind of just figured it out for ourselves. It's a bit of the Wild West, like in that sense. So
so we're
really hard.
If you're going to try to do any kind of renovation project and do a decent job of trying to get some video, some still images, whatever it is on that process and put it together, it's like the time just starts ballooning as far as I could have had this done in 4 hours instead of it's taking 2 days. So we're running up against that a little bit and still figuring out, how to do that most effectively. But that's kind of our mindset going forward, is to try to think through that process and as Cathy said, not, just jump into a project and start banging it out, but try to plan out how we can capture it.
So you're really saying we need to plan more. True.
And then, just kind of broadly, we're we have this kind of revenue from our content creation, and so we basically are taking that and putting it into renovations with the idea that at some point, maybe who knows what's going to happen. Instagram's a black box. We have no control over what that looks like in tomorrow, let alone in 5 years, right? So we kind of are looking forward in thinking that the rentals that we're renovating at this time, kind of in the future will be that backstop of if for some reason, nobody likes to go online and look at Instagram anymore, we have this kind of this fallback, the retirement kind of revenue stream. And so that's kind of where we're at now, is figuring out how to basically take what we already have and either renovate or develop it. So that
long term, you say?
Yeah, in the long term. And I think that's one thing. It's a little bit of a mind shift when you go from times where, maybe buying properties are good. It's a good time to buy. There's opportunities and deals to, if you come into a market, maybe like it has been for the past, 4 or 5 years, where it's just like, it's top of the market, right? It's like everybody's buying houses, and it's like hard to get real good value, and those deals are few and far between. And so, focus in on what we already have. How do we maximize our kind of do we build a backyard cottage? Do we add another unit or something like that, where we do have those opportunities at our places. And so we're, thinking through some of those things as well.
What does the short and medium term rental market look like in your areas? Are you part of that, like Airbnb backlash at all, or
what do you mean by that?
So like in New York right now, there's maybe 1 or 2 towns that are still Airbnb friendly.
Oh, I see.
And every community you drive through is like, they've got signs up everywhere. It's like, stop the block parties. It's time to come home. And,
and I can totally appreciate that. Like, there's there's merits, I think, on both sides of that. But I will say, so we did have an Airbnb in Seattle for a long time, and Seattle basically limits you to 1 Airbnb. And then you can also, I believe, do your primary residence part-time. So as a married couple, we can only have 1 Airbnb. And I think that's kind of, I haven't really seen a lot of negativity towards it lately. I think when it was really going before that, there was a lot of people buying up all these, houses and really driving the market up and turning everything, turning apartment buildings into Airbnbs. And that was
the crazy,
a little excessive, but and so, we do, having the 1 Airbnb was really actually fun, because we got to meet a lot of people. We got to share, our space with a lot of people. It was, I feel like it was pretty fun. It was more management, like significantly more management. We did a lot of the turns ourselves. And during the recession, we just decided to put it back to a long term. I'm not saying we won't shift it back in the future. I do think as the property itself was really well maintained when we were there, every week. It was the property looked great. So that was kind of a positive too, but
What about, are you using property management at all? Or now that you've moved away from Seattle, what are you thinking on that side?
Yeah, we've still been doing everything ourselves, and this
is a common theme in life.
Yeah,
like, do it yourself.
It's definitely a little trickier. I have 2 vacancies coming up in the next month, and getting over there to do showings and things like that is not easy.
And for it, just as a little back, we're 2 hours away from Seattle, so it's not crazy, but there's a mountain pass in between. So sometimes that gets a little bit hairy, but
and we can do day trips over there. But, so far we've been able to make it work. And I think we probably will going forward as well. That we have 3 properties over there, which are all, we have 4 doors essentially on 3 properties. So that it seems to be manageable at this time, and too much more would start to get just might be over the edge. But
quality over quantity has also been one of our kind of business philosophies.
Yeah, and the market seems pretty solid for rentals in the Seattle, in Seattle where those are, and then in Ellensburg where we are. It's a college town, so there's a consistent kind of floor of student rentals, and then it remains pretty solid, I think, in both spots.
Yeah. We've been looking to kind of start investing in this area, and one of the things that attracted us was the Army. I mean, we've got West Point right here. So you've got professors, you've got students, and you've got, active service members, and they're always coming through, and it's the US government paying, right? So it's like a nice stable base, and most of them live in our town or these other two towns. And so you kind of choose the one you want to invest in. But that's like, college towns are really great.
Yeah, and so we're thinking that we might try short-term rental on our rental that we have coming up in town. Precisely because some of that demand for with the college and visiting professors, parents, whoever we have, which wouldn't be typical for a town our size. Of out in rural Washington, essentially. So we're pretty fortunate to have that the college here.
Yeah, that's really good. We're down the street right now from Poughkeepsie, which is Vassar and Marist and a few other, and they have a lot of short-term. In fact, we've been in the same Airbnb for 9 months. We just keep rebooking. But that Airbnb was put in there for that purpose. And then now the town is shifting their rules, and they just made it so that it's no stays under 30 days.
Oh, wow.
Which has a huge impact. And a lot of the businesses are starting to leave. A lot of the Airbnbs are starting to leave. But it's fascinating how much the legislation is driving the market. And intentionally driving the market. So there were some jurisdictions that are like, we'll allow it, but only for 85 days. It's like, well, I can't do anything with that.
That's interesting. So far, our town.
Do you have? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say our town hasn't actually done.
I don't think it's been an issue. I mean, there's very few Airbnbs
it's
here.
Not in any ordinances or anything as far as short-term rentals. So we're still kind of open as far as that is in Ellensburg.
That's good. Do you have hospitals or anything near you?
We do. Yeah.
We've got kind of the biggest hospital for our region. Regional area of a few small towns. So we do have that as well.
Okay, because we see visiting nurse as like a huge revenue generator too, and those tend to be 30 to 60 day stays. So there's an entire website whose name I'm blanking on right now that just handles visiting nurses and their accommodations, and so it's fully furnished 30 plus days. So it's interesting what sub markets there are out there. There's a lot of fascinating ones.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, great. Well, we're about at time. I want to pop your Instagram handle up here so that people can find you there. And then I wanted to see, do you have any final thoughts to leave everyone with?
I would just say, there's so many different ways you can get into real estate investing, and just the way that if I could summarize a quick succinct thing of the way that we've done it is really taken a very DIY hands-on approach and started with the house that we were living in, because everybody has to live somewhere, right? I mean, if you say you have housing, you're either going to pay rent or you're going to if you can buy something somewhere, then you pay a mortgage. And if you can start from that basic building block of your own house. You're living in it. How do you make this, asset make money for you? And so that's what we did. And we, over time, you get better you learn how to renovate, you learn how to, fix a sink, you learn how to plumb a sink. You can finish hardwood floors, all those things. And, just over time, you get the skills, and you can also kind of get the assets under your belt. As you increase the value of your home, you can use equity to get a down payment for your next, property. And so it's, you can start pretty small and start pretty humbly, I think, to kind of start this real estate journey. And that's what we did. And we're so glad that we had like these bumps.
I'm so glad I got laid off in the end. I mean, at the time I would never have said that, but
yeah. So, but we'd be happy to connect with anybody who's listening, and, reach out. We'll answer questions, bounce ideas off. Happy to do it.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to end the broadcast now, and we'll talk to you soon.
Awesome.
Thanks for having us.